I'm not going to stand here in front of one of the great wonders of the world and argue about an old movie. I'll go back inside. If you figure out some plan to make $800 last a lifetime, knock on the door. I'll be in there.
You're listening to the Keeping Your Money Show with Jamie Westenbarger and Bart Steinler.
Welcome back to the Keeping Your Money Show. Jamie Westenbarger, joined as always by Bart Steinler. We've been talking about how financial advisors can help workers do better in their retirement savings than their peers who do not have advisors. Discussed the shocking revelation that Social Security is going to fall short of meeting its requirements, even though that's been reported for 20 years. That was breaking news this week. So we discussed that a little bit. I want to remind you, if you're missing part of the show, you can find it on our website. Go to keepingyourmoney.com. You can also find it on all of our podcast partners. Go to iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher. Basically, if it's out there, we're on there. Just search for the Keeping Your Money Show. If you want to reach out to us, maybe you want a review of your current plan. Maybe you need a plan. Maybe you're just kind of plugging along like we were just talking about last segment, and you're putting money away, but you have no idea if it's enough or what it's going to do.
I think a lot of people look at this and they say, oh my God, this is going to be a daunting task. Or some, business owner has a 401k plan. He's like, oh my God, if I have to change this is just going to be a ton of work,
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of draw an analogy. About 4 or 5 weeks here ago, they started putting up all sorts of roadblocks and doing road work and that kind of stuff.
Jeez, all over the entire city.
And it just got really, really frustrating. And so I finally figured out a route home which had the least amount of resistance, and I was able to avoid as many traffic backup as possible.
Sure.
Okay? Same thing on my way to work. It was a different route each way. So the other day, I'm taking my new route to work, and I get about 4 blocks into it, and you know what? The road's closed. The detour side.
I was going to say everyone else found it.
And I'm like, no, this is terrible. Okay, here's the analogy. If you are that person that is not doing this, or you're that company that isn't changing your 401k plan because you think it's going to be terribly, terribly frustrating, I'm not going to say there's nothing to it. You do have to do a little bit of work to get involved in it. But it's not as frustrating as trying to drive around all of these different traffic configurations that the city of Grand Rapids has right now.
I see a new slogan for the radio show. It's trouble, but it's not nearly as bad as driving in construction.
Yeah.
It's
a piece of cake compared to that.
Orange barrels got you down. We've got something that's easy compared to that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, one of the questions we get a lot of times is, what do you put away in your 401k?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to remind you can always, of course, reach out to us if you have questions or you want to talk to us personally. 888-98-MONEY is the number, 888-986-6639. You can also email me, info@keepingyourmoney.com. USA Today had an article the other day talking about the 401k. And, the first thing that I have to say is, if you have a 401k and you are not at a minimum, getting the full company match from your employer, you are giving away free money. That is like number one, most important thing. You must be getting the free money. So now that we've gotten that, a lot of times the question is, should I max it out? Should I be putting the whole $19,000 away if I can afford to? Should I do more than the match? And, unfortunately, the answer to that, like a lot of answers when it comes to finances and saving for retirement, is, well, it depends.
Right.
It depends on a lot of things. How good is the plan? How expensive is the plan? What are your investment options like? Do you have other opportunities? Many times people don't even think, Bart, like when you have a spouse, maybe you've decided you can put $20,000 away for retirement total, right? And we'll see both people in the marriage are putting away 10 each. But then we look at the plans, and maybe one is a really expensive plan. Maybe it's unfortunately has to be a 403B, which sometimes can have a lot more expenses if you're a teacher or work for the college or a hospital or something like that. It may make a lot more sense for you to just contribute whatever needs to be contributed to get a match if there is one, and the rest goes to your spouse's savings plan because they work for a Fortune 500 company with a really, really cheap 401k plan with all kinds of great investment choices. Those are the types of things that sometimes thinking outside the box can make a huge difference when it comes to retiring.
Yeah, and then besides your 401k plan, there may be other plans that make sense for you to invest in.
Sure.
For instance, there might be an HSA plan. So if you have a high deductible health insurance policy, you can be putting money away in an HSA plan. It still has the tax deductibility. It can still be invested. And the nice thing about that too is when you take it out to use it for medical expenses later in life, or not later in life if you need to, but preferably later in life, that the money is not going to be taxed coming out. So that's a real sweet deal, and a lot of people overlook it. And that's something that if it meets your situation, you should definitely take advantage of.
Right. You obviously can also, if you qualify, contribute to a Roth IRA to get some tax diversification in your overall investment strategy. But I would also say you really want to understand your retirement plan. What are the fees in it? What are your investment options? I mean, as an example, let's say you work for a small company. The plan was set up when there were 8 people at the company. Now there's 22, which still isn't very big. The fees in your plan versus the fees in someone's plan who works for Amway or Steelcase or GE or something like that, they're going to be significantly different because just by sheer volume, these larger companies get better breaks. So you want to look and see, if your average cost is 1.5%, you can probably find a lot better cost structure somewhere else, even just on your own. The other side of it is what are your investment options like? We've seen plans in here where there's not a single investment option in there that you even want to put your money in the first place. It's like, okay, take the free money, but shush, let's not choose any of these investments.
Yeah.
These are terrible. There was a company a couple years ago, big company. They're in the financial services insurance business, and they decided that they wanted to create their own mutual funds. And one of the hardest hurdles you have to get over when you create a mutual fund is having volume, having scale. If you just show up as, hey, I got a new mutual fund, people are gonna be like, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, it's not like there's a big demand for new mutual funds out there. There's quite a few of them there.
So what they were able to do, what they did, and I mean, you can argue whether it was a detriment to their employees or not, but they flipped over all of the funds in their 401k to their own funds. Because now they have billions of dollars in those funds, right? I mean, if I was their employee, I would definitely not have been investing in those. Not because they necessarily weren't good, but there was literally zero track record for them. You have no idea if they're any good,
Yeah, and the employer there is definitely not taking on their responsibility as a fiduciary very seriously.
Right.
I mean, they're leaving themselves wide open. I don't see how they could even phantom getting away with that, but apparently they did.
The other thing that I think you have to think about is you really have to be looking at what is your end game. Not enough people consider the end game. And I mean, that's probably true in a lot of situations, right? We don't think about our failing health until it's failing. We don't think about, needing a bigger house until that third kid comes along and you realize it's a little bit more crowded than you thought. We put off decisions that are uncomfortable. How many times do people end up in terrible, deathly kind of situations or significant illness situations without estate planning because they just didn't want to face it, Right. Retirement's kind of the same thing. It's like, I'm going to stick my head in the sand. I'll put some money in my 401k and hopefully it all works out. We see that with business owners. What are you doing for retirement? I'm going to sell my business. Do you have any idea what your business is worth? Well, it's worth a lot. Well, what does that mean? That someone told you it's worth a lot, or you believe it's worth a lot? Because those are two very different things. So,
or have you had that appraised to figure out what it's worth?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you're investing in your plan, whether it's your 401k or some other investment, do you know what that actually looks like? Like, what are you actually creating there? We have people come in all the time that have never considered that, and sometimes they're very pleasantly surprised. We had a gentleman in a couple weeks ago. He wants to retire next year. He said, I just kind of need to know where I stand. He had gone through kind of a divorce and some other things. And, so he wasn't really sure if he had saved enough. We went through the numbers and he looked great. I was like, you could retire today if you really wanted to, He was thrilled. He had never really considered what does this dollar amount mean to me income-wise. We have other people come in who think they're going to retire in a couple years, and we have the uncomfortable conversation of not at the lifestyle you currently live. It is what. So the earlier you do that, the better off you'll be when it comes to knowing if you're even saving enough or not.
Yeah, and I think the average person really doesn't know how to figure that out. I mean, it's not that easy. There's places out there that will tell you, you need to. It has to be this percent, and you can withdraw that percent. It can be this percent of what you make, and things like that. But in reality, those formulas aren't taking into account your individual life.
Right.
And
formulas are only as good as the program that's written and the data that's put into it.
Right. And so they don't know everything about your life. So to say, you can take a withdrawal rate of 4% and you'll be fine. Well, maybe not.
Right.
So I think it's kind of complicated for people to get their head around all of this information and then figure out if they're going to have enough money to have an income plan that's going to last, 25, 30 years, because, that's the world we live in now. It's not you retire and you're probably dead within 10 years.
Right.
That is not the world we live in now.
Well, and I think that's where sometimes generalizations are really bad too. People come in, they're like, well, you're supposed to have 10 times your income in life insurance, right? Well, I don't know. It depends.
Yeah.
What are your responsibilities? You have a 1-year-old. You want to pay for college? Are you 30 years from retirement? I mean, all of those things have.
How much debt do you have?
Yeah, all those things have a big, adjustment part of it. We're going to talk at this coming up in the next segment. People always say, well, I only need 70% of my current income. Well, I challenge that. I don't know where that number came from, because maybe that came from a time when you died 10 years after you retired. But in today's day and age, I see retirees in the first couple of years of retirement sometimes spending more than they spent the year before they retired.
I guess you kind of ask the question, when they come in, are you looking forward to, reducing your lifestyle by 30%?
Right. I mean, who would ever do that intentionally? That's just crazy.
Yeah.
So, all right, coming up, we're going to talk about the 3 most dangerous retirement planning myths right here on the Keeping Your Money Show.
Is your 401k sturdy enough to help support your retirement goals? The Keeping Your Money Show has a team of advisors that will help you size up the assets currently in your 401k and explore asset allocation based on your goals. Call the Keeping Your Money Show today at 1-888-98-MONEY or visit keepingyourmoney.com to learn how you can start solidifying your foundation for a strong retirement plan.